Today I wish to celebrate the life of Riane Eisler. She's a woman who I believe is now in her 80s or 90s and has a huge body of work with which I'm only vaguely familiar. But there was one book that had or left a particularly strong impression on me, which is a book that she wrote called The Chalice and the Blade, which outlines the difference between dominator and partnership cultures. By retracing the archaeological record, she was able to distinguish between two different types of culture: that which was formed out of partnership amongst people, and she was able to notice a point in history where we started to see these dominator cultures. And this was evidenced by um, not just the pottery and the things that people built and made and the way they constructed their villages, but in particularly it was noted from burial sites and how there was a moment from which the burial mounds and burial sites were honoured each member of a tribe or village equally, to a point in time where there started to be a special focus placed on a particular individual or individuals, and where their graves and their burial sites were now places in which weapons or treasures were buried, where there seemed to be a shift towards the veneration or the honouring of one particular person in a tribe, and how they seem to want to take their possessions with them. The idea of ownership and property, and how this then shifted the way people worked from being one of partnership into one where there was very much a leader, a dominator that was guiding the principles which underpin the way people interacted in a community. This book came to me at a time when I was studying nonviolent communication and trying to understand why it is that our language shows so many traces of this kind of domination, the way that we have become accustomed to people talking to us in particular ways, that we've become acclimatized to the idea that people can tell us what we should do and what we should think. Riane Eisler herself was a woman who I believe still remembers the time that her family had to escape the Holocaust in Nazi Germany. She is from a Jewish family who fled overseas because of fear for their lives. And she spent the rest of her life, as I understand it, dedicated to trying to understand why it is that this kind of thing happens. What is it that causes people to think that they are better than another culture or even just another individual person? I mean, I confess that in my own mind there are things that people do that I think badly of, that I judge to be poor choices, disappointing ways of behaving. And I have to check myself and to say, well, am I judging the person or am I judging their behaviour? And who am I to judge? And there is reason to be able to have judgments of other people and the things they do, as long as we're using that same critical eye to assess whether or not our behaviour is in accordance with the highest principles that we may have ourselves. And to check myself as a parent and as a teacher and as a group leader and indeed as a celebrant. Am I trying to inflict my way of thinking and my belief system onto other people, or am I using it in service of love? Am I because it is okay to have principles and to ask things of people, especially as a parent or a leader. If we want our societies, our companies, our families to work effectively and to be environments that strengthen us and equip us for a better life, there are things that we need to ask of each other. There are disciplines that we can aspire to having. And that the quality of that shifts enormously depending on what our underlying worldview is. Am I seeking to dominate, consciously or not, or am I seeking to work in partnership with other people for the betterment of ourselves and for their selves? There's a beautiful statement about love being, so love is care for someone's spiritual growth put into action. And that doesn't mean just giving people everything that they want. It's being dedicated to their spiritual growth, first and foremost, whether or not they're consciously aware of that or not. What we could take for as spiritual growth to be, some people might not like that phrase because they might consider themselves to be materialists or. But spiritual growth is something to do with the essence of our soul, the essence of who we are as people. And we don't have to be religious to be able to appreciate that, if we have a child, we're entrusted with their spiritual growth, with their development as a human being, their mind, their body, their spirit, if you like. I'm quite comfortable with that kind of terminology, obviously. So today I want to give a thought to Riane Eisler, the horrific conditions that caused her family to have to flee from a country in which they were probably quite happy to live, and that the political system, the cultural system became so toxic to them they had to run for their lives, and that she then spent the rest of her life examining these really challenging questions of what it is to be human and why it is that humans can do these awful things to each other. And the result of her discipline that over many, many decades and arduous research led to these incredible conclusions that she then offers and shares with deep love and respect for all beings, without an essence of judgment and condemnation. She seems to be someone who has really attained a sense of acceptance and is emanating peace into the world through all her writings. I'm really looking forward to studying more of her work, and perhaps as my children grow older and I have more time for reading again, I'll be able to get myself involved in her work. So today I've dedicated to Riane Eisler, who was born on this day, and I'd like to send a vote of thanks, a moment of gratitude and appreciation for her life and her contribution to this world.